friends! Welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to make this cute little card holder so that you can have all of your cards in a simple little bag. For this project, you're going to need some yarn. I'll be using this No. 3 weight mercerized cotton today. You'll also need a crochet hook. I'm using a 3mm hook today. You'll also need some scissors, as well as a yarn needle to weave in your ends. We might be using some stitch markers too, but I'm not sure yet. So gather your supplies and let's jump in. First things first, we're going to create a slip knot. Then chain 20. 1, 2, 3, 17, 18, 19, and 20. Now in the second chain from the hook, 1 and 2, create a single crochet. So insert the hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over again, pull through both loops on the hook. From here, we're going to single crochet across the entire chain. At the end of this row, you should have 19 stitches in your row. I'm going to zoom through these single crochets and I'll see you when I get to the end of the chain. Here I am at the end of the first row. I'll just put my last single crochet in and then we're going to chain 1 and turn. Now for row number 2, we're going to start with a single crochet in the front loop only. So you can see when we put the row so that we're looking at the top of it, you can see there's these V's. There's a front loop and a back loop. When we do a normal single crochet, we put both loops on the hook like this. But for this project, we're going to start with one single crochet in the front loop only, like that. In the next stitch, we're going to single crochet in the back loop only. In the stitch after that, we'll single crochet in the front loop only. And then again, we'll single crochet in the back loop only. And I'm going to repeat this all the way across for row number 2. Front loop only, back loop only, front loop only, back loop only. I'll meet you at the end of row number 2. And by the way, if you're brand new to crochet and this is a little too quick for you, I'll include the tutorials for the front loop only, back loop only single crochet stitch in the top corner right now, as well as in the video description. So you can go watch that tutorial and then come back to make this project. All of the relevant tutorials will always be listed in the description box down below. Here I am at the end of row number 2. My second last stitch will be a back loops only single crochet, and then my last stitch of the row is going to be a front loops only. So we're starting the row and finishing the row with a front loop only single crochet for this one. Then I'll chain 1 and turn. And now we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to do a front loop only followed by a back loop only. And then a front loop only, and then a back loop only. And we're going to repeat this all the way across for row number 3. What you'll see at the end of row number 3 is this begins to create a really cute texture. It's a little bit different than just your basic single crochet, and it adds a little bit of detail that makes it just a little bit more whimsical. And you know, we're always looking for whimsy in every one of our projects. Here I am at the end of row number 3. I'll put my last single crochet in the front loop only, and then chain 1 and turn. Now you can start to see that texture forming. It's a little different than just a basic single crochet. I really like this one. All right, now for row number 4, all the way up to row number 52, we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna single crochet front loop only, single crochet back loop only, single crochet front loop only, single crochet back loop only. Just repeat it over and over until you get to row number 52. I'm going to zoom through this part because it's the exact same stitches over and over again, and I will see you when I get to the end of row number 52. By the way, if you're liking this tutorial so far, don't forget to click that like button. It helps the channel grow, and I'd really appreciate if you could take a second to click that like button. Thank you! Here I am at the end of row number 52. It looks awesome. Look at that cute texture. I did a couple of rows in regular single crochet just so you can see the difference in the texture by doing that front loop, back loop. So this is regular single crochet and this is the front loop, back loop. Isn't that cool? It makes it more of like you can see there's like lines in both directions, which is great. All right, so since I'm playing Yarn Chicken, I am going to cut my yarn at this point and I'm going to take my last working loop, pull the tail through, and then I'm gonna weave in that end. We're gonna switch colors because I am almost out of this blue. We're gonna switch to this more greenish blue for our seams and our finishing. Let me measure this to show you about how big it is right now. So this rectangle measures about 9 inches by about 3 inches, 2 3/4 of an inch. And that, once we fold it in half, is going to be the perfect size to hold a credit card, a gift card, a debit card, or any of those types of cards. All right, I've got my ends woven in now. What we're gonna do now is we are going to use our stitch markers. So count from either end to find the middle stitch, or the middle row rather, and then at that point fold over your work. We're going to stitch marker those rows at the bottom corners together just so that we keep the work nice and straight. And there we go. Now we've got this stuck together in a way that will make it easy for us to do our stitches. I'm going to cut a long piece of yarn now, probably 2 meters, maybe 6 feet of thread at this point. You might not need that much, but going longer is safer than not having enough. Then I'm just gonna thread my needle and we are gonna stitch this rectangle together with blanket stitches. And we're gonna stitch this project together with blanket stitches. Let me zoom you in for this. Starting at the top corner where we've got 2 rectangles touching, 2 corners connecting, we're going to insert the needle into the first stitch on both pieces of fabric. From here, we'll tie that piece just to create a nice strong seam. We want to start with some nice tight stitches here. So I'm gonna double knot it and we'll weave that end in after the fact. Now I'm gonna take out my first stitch marker just so it's not in the way while I'm showing you what we're gonna do next. So we're gonna be doing blanket stitches. That means in each row, so this is row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4, these sections here are 2 rows. So in each of the rows moving down, we're gonna do 1 blanket stitch. So if we look at it from the top, we're gonna insert the needle through the first stitch of the first row, right where we put that knot, and then we're gonna pull the needle through. There's gonna be a loop left behind before you draw it all the way closed, and we're gonna insert the needle down through that loop before pulling the entire stitch tight closed. And that's a blanket stitch. Then we'll go into the next first stitch of the next row. So right there and right there. Same thing, we'll pull it through. There will be a little loop left behind and we'll pass the needle down through that loop. And then we'll draw that closed and there's another blanket stitch. And we're gonna continue that all the way down the side of the work. We'll do 1 blanket stitch in each first stitch of each row all the way down. If you do this with the same color that you did the body of the work with, these stitches will be virtually invisible. But I switched colors because I'm running out of yarn and because it makes it a little easier to see. So I'm just gonna zoom down to the corner and I'll show you what I'm gonna do when I get to the corner of the work. And here I am at the corner, at the bottom corner of the work. I'm gonna do my last couple of blanket stitches here. And what we're gonna do is we're going to continue the blanket stitches along the bottom seam. Even though the bottom seam is already secured closed, it's just gonna create a little bit of continuity in the work so that it looks like there's a seam all the way around. So I'm going to put a second blanket stitch. I'm gonna turn the work. We just did our last blanket stitch in the last row down. And now in the same row, but with the work turned 90 degrees, I'm gonna do another blanket stitch. And because we turned the work, that blanket stitch is going to appear to be going the other way. Hope that makes sense. And now I'm going to just put 1 blanket stitch in each stitch across. So we're not going down the rows, we're going across the row. So instead of 1 stitch in each row, we're doing 1 stitch in each stitch And again, even though the bottom is already secured closed, this just creates continuity so that it looks as though we've stitched all the way around this little pocket. When I get to the next corner, I'm gonna do the exact same thing. I'm gonna turn the corner by putting 2 blanket stitches in the same spot, and then I am going to blanket stitch all the way up to the corner on the other side. I'm gonna zoom through this part because it's the same stitches, and I will see you when we make it up to the next corner. Here I am at the last blanket stitch here. And now we've got 3 sides of our rectangle stitched closed and then an open stitch at the top. So I'm going to just weave in this end now. Actually, am I? No, I'm not. What I'm gonna do now is I am going to create our loop and then we're going to slip stitch around the top. So let me zoom out a little for this. So I'm going to insert my hook just at the top stitch. Doesn't matter what side, but the top stitch of the work. And then the tail of the yarn from our seam, I'm going to bring up just like this with a loop. And then I'm gonna pull that loop through nice and wide. Now we're gonna be doing a chain stitch, but the way I'm going to do it is with my hands. And reason being, I'm going to be pulling it fairly tight. So a chain stitch would just be, you can do a chain stitch if you so choose. A chain stitch is just yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through. So we're going to be doing that, but we're gonna do it pulling a little bit tighter in order to make our tie a little bit more narrow, a little bit structurally more tight. So I'm pulling it through, and then I'm gonna grab the tail, pull it through, grab the tail, pull it through. And I am going to do that 60 times. So I've finished my chain of 60 now. I'm going to put my hook in at the opposite corner. So we had our chain coming out of the one corner, right next to it, the next stitch over. I'm gonna put the chain, or the hook rather, into that stitch. And then the working loop, I'm going to pull through. I'm gonna tighten it down. And then I'm gonna pull that working loop through that stitch. Then I'm gonna chain 1, and from here, I am going to single crochet 1 time in each stitch all the way around the work. At this point, the tails of the green yarn, I'm going to cover them with my single crochets. So I'll just hold them parallel along the row while I work, and I am going to put 1 single crochet in each stitch around. So I've made it around with 1 round of single crochets around the top of the work, and we've got our slip stitch little loop here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to count from either end of one side here, and I'm going to mark the middle stitch. I'm going to use a stitch marker here to mark the middle stitch. And now we're going to do a round of slip stitches. So I'm going to pick up my working loop. We're going to ignore that whole loop at this point, and I'm going to just start by slip stitching in the first single crochet, which happens to be in between both of those rows of stitches. And then again, I'm going to ignore that long chain, and I'm going to slip stitch into the next single crochet. It's going to be a little snug at the beginning of the row. And now I'm going to slip stitch across 1 time in each single crochet stitch until I reach my stitch marker. All right, I've made it to my stitch marker. Now I'm gonna chain 30. 1, 2, 3, 28, 29, and 30. Now I'm going to slip stitch in the next stitch, and then I'm going to continue to slip stitch all the way around. I don't think I mentioned this, but I've decided we're gonna add a button because I want this to be able to stay closed in your bag or on your keychain. I'm just gonna zoom through this next part as I slip stitch all the way back to the beginning of the round. See you when I get there. All right, I made it back to the beginning of the work. I'm gonna just put 1 final slip stitch here for the last stitch of the round, and then I'm gonna trim my yarn with a nice long tail, and I am going to just pull that last stitch through. Now I'm gonna weave in this end, and then we're going to put a button on. So let me go find a button to put on. I found a cute little blue button here. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just put in some cards into my little card holder so that I can determine the best spot for the button. I think the button will go best right down here, just like that. So I'm going to use the remaining tail of my blue yarn. Because these buttonholes are quite large, I can use yarn instead of thread. I'm gonna grab a little piece of my yarn and I'm going to thread up my yarn needle, and then I'm gonna put that button right where I want it. Good. And then I'm just going to stitch it down. So first I'm going to just loop through the button and through one loop of fabric here in my crochet fabric with a nice long tail, and I'm gonna just tie that, double knot it, just to start from a pretty secure place with this stitch. And now I'm just gonna take a minute and stitch this button down so that it's nice and secure on my project. And there we go. Now it's got a cute little button on it. We can fold that over, and now the cards are safely secured inside the little pocket. And guess what, friends? That's it, it's finished. So we've got this cute little space now for you to hold your gift cards or your credit card or your debit card. The pocket is a little deeper than a card so that it's got a little bit of room so it won't just fall out easily. Even when the button's not done up, they don't fall out super easily. We've got that button to secure it closed, which adds a cute little extra detail that I just love. And I think this textured stitch really adds something extra to the project, don't you think? This little loop here will allow you to put it onto a purse or onto a keychain as a little slip knot loop like this. You could also just have that loop a little longer. I made mine 60 chains, but you could make yours 80 chains and then it would be long enough for you to wear as a little wristlet. You could also just have it in your bag as is and use that as the handle to loop it out when you need your card. I have mine, this one's the one that I've been using. I have it looped onto the strap of my bag so that when I need my credit card, I can just pull this whole pocket out and tap my credit card from this pocket. Here is what that same stitch looks like in purple. Isn't that so cool? I love this front loop, back loop only stitch. I think it really adds something fancy to a basic single crochet project. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments down below what you think of this one, and if you're gonna be making one too, if you're gonna use it for your gift cards, your credit cards. This might even be a great gift. If you're gifting someone a gift card, you can make them a little pocket to store it in. Anyways, friends, thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this one. By the way, thank you so much to everyone who is supporting the channel this month. Here is the list of all of the supporters. Thank you guys so much. You're awesome. And thank you to everyone who consistently likes the videos and leaves a comment. It means a lot and it's really helpful for the channel. If you'd like to support the channel, check out the links in the description down below. All relevant tutorials will be listed down there as well. So definitely take a second and check those out. That's all I've got for you today, friends. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next week. Bye!